So it's finally fall, and here in Florida, it definitely feels like the weather has changed. Last week we had a lot of rain and a lot of heat, and while temperatures are not that different this week, the air is drier and it just feels different. So, you know, I can definitely feel fall in the air. And one thing that's really good about fall is the sun is just not quite as strong. And that is good for me, and it's good for grafting plants. So I have been grafting a lot of mango trees, and today I want to graft something else. So I've been growing out Caimito or star apple seeds for a long time, and I just went to the shade house to grab some, and this is what I found. They have gotten too big in their pots, and they just are really dry. I don't like to graft onto things that are slightly dehydrated, and these look like it's more than slightly. So then I went to the 3-gallon department, and it didn't look that much better. So that one's a little chlorotic, and also seems to be dry. It's not as dry as those, but still, it's not great. So then I went to the 7-gallon department. And this is what I found. You can tell from the roots coming out of the bottom that it needs to be potted up too. And it looks like it's not as dehydrated as these others, but since I want the best possible outcome for my first attempt ever for grafting Caimito, I am going to soak these plants in this water. You know, I want to graft some things. Of course, I've been meaning to graft Caimito for years. That's the reason that we have all these different seedling fruits at different stages. But there are some other things that I'd like to graft also. So while these are soaking, I think I will try to graft some Black Sapote and some Sapodilla. Of course, Sapodilla is something I have grafted seedlings of, but this time I want to do something different. There's a tree in the back that I cut back, and I would like to top work part of that tree to another variety. So this Caimito can get nice and hydrated while I go and graft a couple other things, the Black Sapote and the Sapodilla. Now hopefully after that, these things will just be ready to be grafted, and hopefully we'll have some success with that. Okay. So I've just found a very nice Black Sapote seedling, and fortunately it's in a 3-gallon pot. It's been recently watered, and it looks like it's very nicely hydrated, and looks like it's a good stage of growth too. So over here is a grafted Black Sapote, and this particular variety is Berniker. So I want to take a scion from this tree and put it on this tree, and hopefully we'll have some success. I haven't grafted a lot of Black Sapote before, and it's been a while too, so I can't really remember what worked out. I'm just going to use the same kind of grafting, the same principles that I use for mango grafting, and see if that works out. I know that there are a lot of people who use bags and leave partial leaves on the scions when they graft Black Sapote, but I don't do that. I don't want to be using a bunch of bags for grafting, so I use the same materials that I use for mango grafting. So here we have a pretty nice part of the tree here. It's a little bit flexible up on top, but not, you know, it seems like this would make a nice scion. So I am going to just cut above this leaf so that it can still grow. And I think this right here might have been a flower that happened a little while ago, but there's that one little stump there. I'm going to trim it off. It's not going to do anything at this point. You can see that there's little tiny leaf buds there, and a more pronounced one up here. And then we have some new leaves forming there. So hopefully it'll work. This top part is very flexible, which is something I usually don't use when I graft mangoes. Since these leaves are already emerging, I'm going to just trim those off, and hopefully those smaller leaf buds will actually work out. I know sometimes in the past I have prepped scions like I prepped them for mangoes, but this is sort of a last minute thing, and a lot of times this will work also, just grabbing something that looks like it's at a good stage. So the next thing is to wrap the scion. So I've got my buddy tape here, and I'll just wrap the part that I'm not going to carve. You want to overlap at least 1/4 of an inch. I didn't really mean to break the buddy tape there, but no problem. Just continue where you left off on it. And I'm running out of this piece just as I'm getting to the top. Very important to wrap that top part. So just get another little piece. Oops, that's sometimes happens. It just, you know, that little leaf stem tore the buddy tape. So I'm gonna try and work with it a little bit. As long as it's all sealed up, it doesn't really matter how it happened. And that looks like it's all sealed up. So here we go with our scion. And I'm just going to sort of check out the areas that I could put it. And basically, we see this part of the scion is the part that I'm going to carve, or whittle, or slice, or whatever we want to call it. And I want to take out that bump, make that as flat as possible. And then I'll put it on this seedling. And hopefully that will work out. So I got my pocket grafting kit. Yeah, wherever there's been a leaf, that the wood is a little different. It's a little bit harder to get a flat cut, so I have to make sure I got that. I think that's pretty much flat. Let me see how it looks on the tree. I'm hoping that does it. So let me just take this leaf off here, make that corresponding cut in the seedling to put the scion on. Let me see where I am there. Oops, silly me, forgot my little notch. Very concerned about that first cut and forgot the second cut. So there we go. So it looks like there's no daylight between them, though it does feel like there's a little bit of a bump up there, so I'm just going to bend the seedling a little bit and see how that works out. I think that's going to do it. I use a piece of buddy tape to keep this scion in place. So it wants to wiggle around, and that wasn't quite big enough of a piece, so what I'm going to do with this one, since it's a whole piece, is I'm going to make a little butterfly bandage, so to speak, right in between the scion and the base plant, the seedling, and those whole pieces are just easier to work with than little tiny pieces. So anyway, that should prevent water from getting into this graft while it's healing. And then I have this to, this part of the scion is not yet wrapped, and so I can wrap that with this little teeny piece of buddy tape. I think I can anyway. It's hard to get through this little space here. Let's see. Well, I think I'll take yet another little piece to make sure that is all secure. Okay, so then we take a grafting elastic to really make sure that it's snug to the seedling. Oops. You don't want to tie it so tightly that you cut off all flow of sap to the top part of the tree and to the scion, but you do want to be somewhat firm about it, because that's the best way to get success, I think. Is a lot of people don't tie things quite firmly enough when they start grafting, when they're just beginning. So that's it for this grafting Black Sapote. This is Berniker, and hopefully it will take. So next, let's go top work a Sapodilla tree. Okay, so next is to try top working a Sapodilla tree. Behind me, right here, is Hassia Sapodilla. And they're nice sapodillas, but this tree was getting really big, and the top part of the tree, there was just lots of open space. I wanted it to be a smaller, more productive tree, so I cut it back. It took a long time before shoots started forming from those cut branches. And now we've got some branches there. And so Hassia is going to be the bottom part of the tree, and I want to put a Sapodilla scion on the middle part of the tree that got cut back. We'll just probably, it's got a little curve to it, so I can put it on a place that's not that's actually curving into it, because this is curving more. Now, I've had a lot of success with grafting these side veneer grafts. Well, I haven't had a lot of success because I haven't done that many, but with grafting these onto seedlings. So I'm hoping that success translates to success on grafting these onto these plants or branches. So just want to make it, find that place where it's easy to slide. Okay, there we go. right in the center and make sure that it's snug down on the bottom. Okay. Let's see what I have to, oh, got one more elastic. No, two more. Great. So I'm gonna wrap the bottom first. There's that little flap that I use on the bottom. That's the most important thing on the bottom to wrap. And I'm going to apply good pressure to the whole scion though, so that it is able to form a nice seal with that base plant. So I put a butterscotch Sapodilla scion on this tree, and I'm hoping that it takes. Never top-worked Sapodilla before, and so if it takes, then we'll have a branch of butterscotch Sapodilla on top of our Hacienda tree. Well, here we are back at the Caimito. It feels like especially the 1 gallon plants have gotten plenty of water, but even so, the leaves are not looking too perky on this one that's got a larger trunk. So I guess that will need a little bit more agua. And yeah, this one is feeling pretty heavy. And then the big 7 gallon, it wasn't really showing much distress before, but it has a lot of like old barky branches here, so I'm not sure where I will graft, if at all, on that one right now. But this is the plant that I want to get scions from, and this is somewhat concerning because wherever there's a fairly new leaf, there are flowers emerging. And so this plant is getting ready to flower and then fruit. I'm guessing that the best time to actually graft Caimito is after you take the fruit off of the tree. But I was busy then. So right now I'm going to try and deal with this situation where there's just a lot of flowers all over the place, and I would really like for this to produce leaves, and so that I can graft it onto one of these plants. So we'll see. As I said, I've never grafted Caimito before, but it looks like this is the wrong time of year for it. We have a branch coming out of this branch, this smaller branch, so obviously that's not ideal. So I'm going to cut right above that little branch. There's another little branch coming out of that leaf, and then take off all of these little flowers. So you can see there's just a lot of flowers emerging every leaf node. So that is really not what I want to graft on to these other plants. So I'm just going to, again, use the same sort of logic that I use for grafting mangoes. These top 3 leaves or other emerging leaves, this seems like it's far too young, so I'll cut that off right away. This one seems fairly mature, and so take off all of these flowers. I guess they'll just break off. I don't need to even cut them off. That's certainly the most efficient way to do it. So off with the flowers. Okay, so now, yeah, not loving that, how flexible the top part is. I'm there's this whole area is fairly flexible, but I'm just going to take the top leaf off. And now we have 5 leaves remaining, but since I'm not bagging this project, I will cut off all of the leaves and hope for the best. I wish that my first attempt at grafting Caimito would have been at a different time of year, but I guess this is sort of, you know, acid test or whatever. We'll see how it goes. So, wrapping the scion with buddy tape. And I just hope that there's enough food in this scion to fuel some more leaves emerging after I took those little flowers off. Don't know until you try. Okay, so the buddy tape is very good at sticking to itself. So if you have any places that it's not completely attached to the buddy tape beneath it, you just press and it's done. So there we go. That's all wrapped up and ready to graft. So this is, you can see that the way that the Caimito grows is not exactly straight. It tends to angle back and forth wherever the leaves occur. So that's going to make it a little bit challenging to find a good place to put this scion. There's not too many straightaways. So maybe this is a good place to try grafting. It's really hard to tell, especially since, you know, lack of experience. But you see, this is not as curvy here as it is when it's a little bit younger. So I'm just trying to figure out what part of the scion would attach well. I think that might be the way to go, is to carve this side right here. So let's try this. Okay, so that seems flat enough. And I just make a little notch here. It is rather skinny, but we'll see. And this is going to go right there. So make sure I got the right place now. Oh, that should do it. Well, that doesn't look too great. You see, it's sort of bumpy underneath. It's much harder to get a good cut. So let me see what I can do. I guess I should have been practicing on some other areas of other branches or something. Right, so that looks a little better. I had to go deeper to get a nice flat cut, and yeah, left a little bit too much of a notch. And so trim this notch back a little bit. And also I'm going to trim this top part a little, or try and get a nice cut up there. And we'll see how this goes. Let's see here. There we go. So, of course, my first piece of buddy tape is just to try and keep this in place. Keep the scion and centered on that area that I just cut of the seedling tree. And then secure it with a grafting elastic. So there we go. We've got Hippolito grafted on this seedling Caimito, and hopefully it will take. What I'm going to do now to hopefully increase the chance of success, oh, here we go, is I'm going to cut back the newest growth on this seedling. So this top part is very flexible. Same thing for this branch, very, very flexible, this part of that branch. And I'll cut back to those leaves there, also very flexible. So, oh, there's another one too. So these leaves here are mature, and there's plenty of them to keep the sap flowing up the tree, but hopefully they will just make it enough shade and also enough energy for this particular graft to take. You know, as I say, I'll just try and find a shady place, happy place that it gets watered, and you know, we'll cross our fingers and hope that takes. I've never done the Caimito grafting before. I know how other people do it, but I figured let's try the same concepts that I use for mango grafting, see how it works. The worst thing that can happen is that it doesn't take and I try something else. So that's my little project for the late in the day. I wanted to graft a few things that I don't normally graft. So we did the Black Sapote and top working a Sapodilla tree, and then this Caimito. And only time will tell whether any of them or all of them have been successful.